A silent stone can speak across thousands of years. We are surrounded by ancient mysteries carved in stone, messages from lost civilizations that challenge everything we think we know about the past. By the end of this journey, you will discover 25 of the world's most astonishing archaeological puzzles that have defied explanation for centuries. We will confront monuments built with impossible precision and encounter scripts that no one alive can read. How did a civilization without modern technology move stones heavier than 500 elephants? Why would a society deliberately bury its greatest temple? The answers to these questions are still hidden, waiting for a key. What part of our own history do you think is still missing? Standing guard on the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx is far more than a familiar silhouette. This colossal creature with the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh is the very definition of a riddle. The most fundamental questions of who built it and when remain fiercely debated. Mainstream archaeology attributes it to the pharaoh Khufu, placing its creation around 2500 BC. Yet compelling evidence suggests this timeline might be entirely wrong. A radical theory points to the Sphinx's body, which shows clear signs of deep vertical erosion. Geologists argue this specific weathering pattern was not caused by wind and sand, but by thousands of years of heavy rainfall. For such erosion to occur, the Sphinx would have to be much older, dating back to a time when the Egyptian climate was far wetter, potentially over 7,000 years ago. If true, this would mean the Sphinx was built by a lost civilization that vanished long before the dynastic Egyptians we know. Adding to the enigma are the Sphinx's own damaged features. Its missing nose is often wrongly blamed on Napoleon's troops, but historical accounts show it was gone long before his arrival. More telling is the ceremonial beard that once adorned its chin, fragments of which are now housed in the British Museum, and the Dream Stele, a massive granite slab erected between its paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV, telling a story of divine right to rule granted by the Sphinx itself. These additions feel like later attempts to claim and reinterpret a monument that was already ancient and mysterious. And then there is what we cannot see. Seismic surveys and other remote sensing techniques have repeatedly indicated the presence of cavities and tunnels beneath the Sphinx. Could there be hidden chambers holding records from a forgotten age, a hall of records as some speculate? The possibility that the greatest secret of the Sphinx lies not in its weathered face, but deep within the earth below it, continues to fuel the belief that our history is missing a foundational chapter. Far from the desert sands of Egypt, another stone giant whispers its secrets on the windswept Salisbury Plain. Stonehenge stands as a prehistoric monument known across the globe, yet its true purpose remains one of history's most stubborn puzzles. How did a Neolithic society without the wheel or metal tools accomplish such a staggering feat of engineering? The mystery begins with the stones themselves, particularly the smaller blue stones that form the inner circle. Geological analysis reveals they were quarried from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles. Imagine the sheer determination required to move these multi-ton blocks across rugged terrain and raging rivers. The most accepted theory suggests they were hauled on wooden sledges and rollers, a back-breaking process that would have required the coordinated labor of thousands of people for generations. This was more than construction, it was an act of profound faith. But faith in what? The most compelling theory paints Stonehenge as a sophisticated astronomical observatory. Each year during the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, casting its rays directly into the heart of the stone circle. This was not a coincidence, it was a celestial calendar carved in stone, marking the turning of the seasons for a people whose survival depended on it. Yet astronomy may only be part of the story. Excavations have revealed that Stonehenge was also a vast burial ground for centuries, the final resting place of elite families. This has led to another compelling idea, that it was a place of healing, a prehistoric Lourdes where the sick and injured traveled from across Britain to be close to the blue stones, believed to hold magical, curative properties. The recent discovery of even larger neighboring structures has completely transformed our understanding. Using ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists have mapped a sprawling ritual landscape surrounding Stonehenge. They found the remains of Durrington Walls, a massive henge monument that once housed a vibrant settlement connected to the river by a long, raised avenue. It seems Stonehenge was not an isolated temple, but the glittering centerpiece of a vast sacred complex, a Neolithic cathedral city designed for the living and the dead. With computer-generated reconstructions, we can finally see it not as a ruin, but in its full glory, towering and majestic, painted in bright white and sacred symbols, a testament to a civilization whose beliefs and capabilities we are only just beginning to grasp. High above the arid plains of southern Peru, a sprawling art gallery lies invisible to those standing on the ground. The Nazca Lines are a collection of hundreds of gigantic geoglyphs, so immense that their true forms only reveal themselves from the sky. Created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD, these figures were not built up but carefully carved out. The artists achieved their work by meticulously removing the dark, sun-baked surface pebbles to expose the lighter-colored sand and clay beneath. This simple yet brilliant technique created a stark contrast that has survived for well over 1,000 years, preserving a secret in plain sight. The variety of these designs is staggering. Some are clean, precise geometric shapes, vast trapezoids and razor-straight lines that run for miles across the desert floor. Others are elaborate biomorphic figures, breathtaking in their complexity and scale. A colossal spider, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a curious monkey with a spiraling tail, and a sinuous orca all rest on this vast desert canvas. Each one is a masterpiece of proportion, designed to be seen as a single, coherent image from a vantage point the creators themselves could never physically reach. This simple fact is the core of the mystery. Why would a people invest such immense effort into creating art they could never properly behold? The theories are as numerous as the lines themselves. Some researchers propose they were a giant astronomical calendar, with the lines pointing to celestial bodies on the horizon to mark important seasonal events for agriculture. Others argue they were sacred pathways, walked during ritual processions to pray for water from the gods, a precious resource in one of the driest places on Earth. The most enduring idea is that they were messages to deities in the sky, immense offerings meant to be seen and appreciated by powerful beings looking down from the heavens. This last concept has, of course, fueled more speculative ideas about ancient astronauts and visiting extraterrestrials, suggesting the lines were runways or signals for spacecraft. While mainstream archaeology finds little evidence for this, it speaks to the profound and otherworldly nature of the achievement. Today, these fragile lines face new threats from a world their creators could never have imagined. Illegal mining, encroaching urbanization, and even the footprints of careless tourists pose a constant risk to their preservation. Conservationists work tirelessly to protect this irreplaceable heritage, a testament to human ingenuity that continues to challenge our understanding of the past. Why create something so magnificent that you could never see it in its entirety? The answer remains etched into the desert, a silent message waiting for its true meaning to be uncovered. Across the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean lies a speck of land so isolated it feels like the edge of the world. Here, on Easter Island, nearly 900 massive stone figures stand with their backs to the sea, their brooding gazes fixed silently upon the land. These are the Moai, and their creation is a story of both breathtaking human achievement and a profound ecological warning. Carved from compressed volcanic ash at a single quarry, Rono Roroku, these statues are far more than just heads. Most are full-bodied figures buried up to their necks by centuries of soil, with some towering over 30 feet tall and weighing more than 80 tons. The quarry itself is a haunting landscape of giants, littered with statues in every stage of completion, as if the workers simply walked away one day. The sheer scale of the work is staggering, but the true mystery lies in how they were moved across miles of rugged terrain. For a long time, the accepted theory was one of societal collapse. The story went that the island's Polynesian settlers, the Rapa Nui, became obsessed with statue construction. They cut down all the island's palm trees to make sledges and rollers, triggering catastrophic soil erosion. This led to famine, warfare, and even cannibalism, a civilization that literally fell under the weight of its own idols. This narrative is powerful and cautionary, but newer evidence suggests the truth is far more complex and ingenious. Recent experiments have shown that the Moai, with their distinctive forward lean and rounded bases, could have been moved by a surprisingly small group of people. By using ropes to rock the statue side to side, they could essentially make the massive stone figure walk upright across the landscape. This method, far more efficient than dragging, would have required coordinated chants and rhythms, turning the transport into a sacred communal act. Adding to their grandeur, many of the Moai were crowned with massive cylindrical hats called pukau, carved from a different red-colored volcanic stone. These top knots, some weighing as much as 12 tons, were somehow lifted and placed on top of the erected statues, a final, dazzling feat of engineering. The story of Easter Island is being rewritten not as a simple tale of ecocide, but as one of remarkable resilience. The Rapa Nui were not foolish people who destroyed their world, but ingenious survivors who adapted to a changing environment. They found a way to move mountains with nothing but rope, muscle, and unwavering belief. Their legacy stands as a powerful reminder that the greatest mysteries are not always about what a civilization built, but why they stopped and what they were trying to say to the future. From the silent giants of Easter Island, we journey to a device so intricate it seems to have fallen out of time. In 1901, sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera made a startling discovery. Amidst broken pottery and marble statues, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted it was initially overlooked. This unassuming object, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, would eventually be recognized as the world's oldest known analog computer. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer, its true nature hidden beneath centuries of marine growth. It was only with the advent of X-ray and later CT scanning technology that researchers could peer inside, revealing a complexity that stunned the scientific community. The scans unveiled a breathtaking clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely machined and arranged in a system of dizzying sophistication. This was not a simple calendar, it was a mechanical universe in a box. The device could predict the movements of the sun and the moon, chart the positions of known planets, and even forecast lunar and solar eclipses with astonishing accuracy decades in advance. One small dial even tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. The level of engineering knowledge required to create such a device is mind-boggling for its time, which experts date to around 200 years before the Common Era. This places its creation in the heart of the Hellenistic period, a golden age of Greek science. But who could have possessed such genius? The most compelling theories point to the legendary school of Archimedes in Syracuse, or perhaps the brilliant craftsmen of Rhodes. The mechanism embodies a knowledge of astronomy and mechanics that we simply did not believe the ancients possessed. Its very existence forces us to rewrite the history of technology. And then, this knowledge simply vanished. The intricate gearwork of the Antikythera Mechanism has no parallel in the archaeological record for over 1,000 years. Similar technological complexity would not reappear in Europe until the astronomical clocks of the medieval period. How could such advanced engineering be invented, used, and then completely lost to history? Through detailed three-dimensional animations, we can now reconstruct this marvel. We see how a hand crank on the side would have set the entire cosmos in motion. As the user turned the handle, delicate pointers swept across dials on the front and back, displaying the dance of the heavens with pinpoint accuracy. It was a portable planetarium, a divine oracle for predicting eclipses, and a sophisticated calculator all in one. This single artifact shatters our image of the ancient world as a place of simple philosophies and rudimentary tools. It whispers of a lineage of genius, of workshops filled with precise tools and brilliant minds, whose other creations may still lie undiscovered at the bottom of the sea. While the Antikythera Mechanism reveals a lost world of precise science, another artifact from a different era presents a puzzle of pure, undiluted confusion. The Voynich manuscript is a book that defies reading, a 240-page codex written entirely in a script that does not match any known language on Earth. Carbon dated to the early 15th century in northern Italy, its vellum pages are filled with looping, unknown characters flowing from right to left in a seemingly grammatical structure. But the words are only half the mystery. Its illustrations plunge the viewer into a surreal and alien world. There are detailed drawings of plants that do not exist, their roots and leaves unlike any botanical specimen known to science. There are astronomical charts showing unfamiliar constellations and celestial spheres. Most strangely, there are pages filled with naked women bathing in intricate, interconnecting tubes and pools of a vibrant green liquid, a scene that feels both biological and fantastical. For centuries, this book has been a siren's call to the world's greatest codebreakers. Teams from the National Security Agency, veterans who cracked Japanese and German ciphers during the Second World War, have applied their most advanced methods to it and failed. In the modern era, sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms have analyzed its patterns, searching for the hidden grammar or syntax of a real language. The AI can confirm the text has the statistical structure of a genuine, meaningful language, but it cannot tell us what a single word means. It is a locked door with no key. The theories about its origin are as bizarre as its contents. Some believe it is an elaborate and expensive hoax crafted to deceive a wealthy medieval patron. Yet, the sheer consistency and complexity of the script, spanning hundreds of pages, make this seem unlikely for a mere forgery. Others argue it is a cipher for alchemical secrets, with the strange plants representing chemical processes and the bathing women symbolizing distillation. Another compelling idea is that it is a pharmacopoeia from a completely unknown culture, documenting a lost tradition of herbal medicine. High-resolution scans of its pages reveal even more subtle details, tiny strokes of the pen and faint annotations that only deepen the enigma. Every few years, a new claim of a breakthrough surfaces. A scholar might announce they have identified a few words based on a related Turkish dialect, or a computer scientist might propose a statistical model that suggests a form of abbreviated Latin. But these claims are always met with fierce skepticism from the wider academic community, and none have provided a coherent, full translation that unlocks the manuscript's secrets. It remains the ultimate cold case, a beautiful, frustrating, and silent witness to a mind from the past whose thoughts we may never share. What kind of knowledge was so precious or so dangerous that it had to be encoded in a language for no one? While a single, indecipherable manuscript baffles scholars, an entire landscape of silent stones in France presents a mystery of a different scale. On the windswept coast of Brittany, the Karnak alignments are a spectacle of pure, overwhelming numbers. Imagine walking through a field where over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones march in near-perfect rows, stretching for miles across the countryside. These are not random placements. The stones, known as menhirs, are organized into three major groups with evocative names like Lamanic, Kermario, and Kerleskan. Each alignment consists of parallel lines of dozens, sometimes hundreds of these granite giants, some standing over 4 meters tall. Interspersed among them are dolmens, which are stone table tombs, and tumuli, great earthen mounds that cover ancient burial chambers. The sheer, organized ambition of it is breathtaking. It feels less like a collection of monuments and more like a city built for giants, or a complex machine whose purpose has been forgotten. The most compelling theory suggests this machine was pointed at the heavens. Researchers have long noted that the primary axes of the alignments correspond to the rising and setting positions of the sun and the moon at key times of the year. The entire complex could have functioned as a colossal astronomical observatory, a stone calendar used to mark the solstices and predict eclipses, allowing a Neolithic society to track time on a grand, almost cosmic scale. But astronomy may have been intertwined with the sacred. Many archaeologists believe Karnak was also a vast religious sanctuary, a destination for pilgrimages where rituals for the dead and celebrations for the harvest were conducted. The presence of the burial mounds strongly supports this, indicating a deep connection to ancestors and the spirit world. Local legend, however, offers a far more dramatic origin story. Folklore claims that the stones are a Roman legion that was pursuing the wizard Merlin. As the soldiers closed in, the great sorcerer simply waved his hand and turned the entire army to stone, freezing them in their tracks for all eternity. While a charming tale, the true history is buried deep in time. Precisely dating the stones has proven incredibly difficult, but current estimates place their erection by a sophisticated prehistoric culture beginning around 4500 BC, making them far older than the pyramids of Egypt. The mystery is now being probed with 21st century tools. Archaeologists are using ground-penetrating radar to see beneath the soil without disturbing a single stone. These surveys have already revealed previously unknown burial pits and architectural features, suggesting that the visible alignments are just the tip of the iceberg. There is an entire hidden landscape waiting to be mapped. From a sweeping aerial view, the true genius of the site becomes clear. The lines are not perfectly straight, they curve and bend with the natural topography, showing an incredible harmony between the builders and their environment. With computer-generated graphics, we can project the paths of celestial bodies across the sky, watching as the sun and moon slide into alignment with the ancient rose. Were these stones a Neolithic cathedral, a cosmic clock, or something else entirely that we have not yet conceived? The stones hold their secret, a silent testament to a people who sought to build their understanding of the universe directly into the earth itself. Deep in the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, a discovery so profound was made that it forced archaeologists to tear up the history books. This is Göbekli Tepe, a complex of massive, T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in great stone circles. What makes this place utterly revolutionary is its age. It was built around 9600 BC, a staggering 6,500 years before Stonehenge and a full 5,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. This was a time before pottery, before the wheel, and most importantly, before farming. Every single theory of human civilization held that first humans discovered agriculture. This reliable food supply allowed for permanent settlements, and only then, with a surplus of food and labor, did people have the time and organization to build grand temples and monuments. Göbekli Tepe turns that narrative completely on its head. Here, at the dawn of the Neolithic era, we have evidence of hunter-gatherers constructing what is arguably the world's first known temple. The implication is staggering. It suggests that the human impulse to come together for a shared spiritual purpose, to build something monumental for the gods, may have been the very catalyst that forced us to invent civilization itself. The construction of Göbekli Tepe would have required feeding hundreds of workers, creating a demand for a predictable food source that could only be met by farming. The temple came first and the city followed. The pillars themselves are a gallery of ancient art and terror. Each T-shaped monolith is carved with an elaborate menagerie of animals, rendered with breathtaking skill and a palpable sense of power. You see snarling foxes, dangerous scorpions, and imposing wild boars. Most haunting of all are the massive vultures, their stylized forms looming over the stone, perhaps symbolizing a cult of the dead. These were not the domesticated creatures of a farmyard, but the wild and potent spirits of a hunter's world. Using computer-generated reconstructions, we can walk through this sacred space as it once was. We see the rings of towering pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, connected by stone benches. We see the two central pillars in each circle, even larger than the rest, possibly representing abstract human forms or powerful ancestors watching over the rituals below. The entire complex was likely open to the sky, a place of gathering, ceremony, and profound communal effort. And then, around 8000 BC, something remarkable happened. After centuries of use, the people of Göbekli Tepe deliberately and carefully buried their entire temple. They brought in immense amounts of soil and rubble, entombing the pillars and their carved beasts, sealing them away from the world. They did not destroy it, they preserved it like a time capsule. This was not an act of violence or conquest, but one of profound reverence. Perhaps the beliefs changed or the people moved on, but they ensured their holy place would remain intact. This deliberate burial is the only reason we can study Göbekli Tepe today. It lay hidden for nearly 12,000 years, perfectly protected, waiting to deliver its earth-shattering message to a future that could scarcely believe it. What did these hunter-gatherers believe that was powerful enough to unite them in such a colossal task? And what secret did they know that made them bury their greatest achievement for the ages? But the silent giants of Easter Island are not the only mystery left by the Rapa Nui. Hidden away in museum collections are a handful of intricately carved wooden objects, bearing a script as enigmatic as the Moai themselves. This is Rongo Rongo, a writing system unlike any other. The glyphs have a unique, fluted appearance, as if carved with a small shark's tooth, creating characters that flow in a rhythmic, alternating pattern. These are not simple pictures. They depict a fascinating world of stylized human figures, bizarre birdmen, frigate birds, fish, and complex geometric shapes, all arranged in tightly packed lines that reverse direction with each new row, a method called reverse Boustrafedden. For a brief, shining moment, this was a living script. When European missionaries arrived in the 1860s, they were astonished to find that certain elders, known as Tangata Rongorongo, or men of the script, could chant the text while reading the tablets. But that thread of knowledge was about to be violently severed. In a tragic twist of history, Peruvian slave raiders descended upon the island, capturing and carrying away over half the population, including, almost certainly, the last of the literate chiefs and elders. The society that remained was shattered, further devastated by introduced diseases. Within a single generation, the ability to read Rongo Rongo was utterly extinguished. The key was lost forever. Today, only about 24 authentic wooden tablets survive, and they present scholars with a monumental challenge. The core debate is whether Rongo Rongo constitutes a true, full writing system capable of recording any spoken thought, or if it is a form of proto-writing, perhaps a memory aid for reciting ritual chants, genealogies, or creation myths. Without a bilingual text, a Rosetta Stone for the Pacific, there is no way to be sure. This has not stopped attempts to find a solution. Some researchers have tried to link the glyphs to the Indus Valley script from ancient Pakistan, or to symbols used by the prehistoric Vinca culture of the Balkans, proposing a lost global connection. Others see a more local origin, suggesting the birdman motif is directly tied to the island's famous Tangata Monu cult. High-resolution scans of the tablets reveal the incredible craftsmanship in stunning detail, every groove and curve telling a story we can no longer understand. Over the years, many have claimed to have deciphered Rongo Rongo. One theory suggests the tablets are lunar calendars, while another posits they are genealogical records of powerful families. Yet none of these proposed translations have gained widespread acceptance in the academic community. Each one fails to provide a consistent, reproducible method that can be applied across all the surviving texts. The beautiful, rhythmic glyphs remain a locked door. They are the haunting echo of a unique intellectual achievement, a system of writing that blossomed in complete isolation on the most remote inhabited island on Earth, only to be silenced just as the outside world arrived. What profound stories of their history, their gods, and their relationship with the Moai did the Rapa Nui carve into that wood, hoping to preserve for the future? We may never know. The silent script of Rongorongo is a mystery of meaning, but some stones present a puzzle of pure, impossible weight. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the ruins of the Roman temple complex at Baalbek stand as a testament to imperial ambition. Yet the true wonder lies not in the graceful Roman columns, but in the titanic platform upon which they were built. This foundation is made from some of the most colossal stone blocks ever handled by human hands. The most famous of these are three behemoths known as the Trilithon. Each one of these stones is a staggering 64 feet long, with a height of 14 feet and a width of 12 feet. They weigh an estimated 800 tons apiece. To put that into a modern perspective, that is heavier than two fully loaded Boeing 747 jetliners. And these are not rough, unshaped boulders. They are perfectly cut, dressed with such precision that you cannot slide a credit card between their joints. The Romans were master engineers, but the movement and placement of the Trilithon stones pushes the limits of even their known capabilities. How could a civilization without cranes or powered machinery possibly have lifted and positioned 800-ton blocks over 20 feet into the air? The conventional explanation involves an army of laborers, a forest of wooden scaffolding, and a complex system of ropes, pulleys, and ramps. Yet the sheer coordination required to maneuver a single stone of this size without it cracking under its own weight is a logistical nightmare that defies easy explanation. The mystery deepens just a short distance away in the ancient quarry. Here lies the stone of the pregnant woman, a single block that was never moved. It is even more massive than the Trilithon stones, measuring over 69 feet long and weighing an estimated 1,600 tons. This one block of stone is heavier than most modern naval warships. The sides have been partially cut, but the bottom remains attached to the bedrock, as if the builders simply walked away from an almost completed task. Seeing this block still in place gives us a frozen moment in time, a snapshot of an engineering project so grand it borders on the mythical. This leads to the most compelling question. Did the Romans really build this foundation, or did they simply find it? The stonework of the Trilithon is stylistically different from the Roman construction above it. The massive blocks are held together with no mortar, a technique reminiscent of other, far older megalithic sites across the globe. Some researchers propose that the platform is much older, a relic of a lost civilization from prehistory, a people with knowledge of advanced engineering that has since vanished from history. The Romans, masters of repurposing existing sacred sites, may have simply built their own temples on top of this already existing Cyclopean foundation, claiming its power for their own gods. Through detailed three-dimensional models, we can visualize the Herculean effort required. We see the quarry with workers using stone hammers and wooden wedges to painstakingly separate the block from the living rock. We then see the proposed transport method, with the monolithic stone being inched forward on a track of lubricated wooden rollers, pulled by hundreds of oxen and men. The journey from the quarry to the temple site, though only a third of a mile, would have taken months. When we see footage of the site today, the scale is almost incomprehensible. A person standing next to the stone of the pregnant woman is dwarfed into insignificance. These stones are not just building materials, they are a statement. They declare that the builders possessed a knowledge and a confidence that we still struggle to fully comprehend. Were they meant to appease gods, to demonstrate power, or to create a structure that would literally last for eternity? The platform of Baalbek stands as a permanent challenge, asking us just how much we have really forgotten about the capabilities of our ancestors. High above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, a fortress of stone defies both time and reason. The walls of Sacsayhuamán are a breathtaking display of power and precision, a sprawling complex of zigzagging ramparts constructed from blocks so colossal they seem like the work of giants. These are not simple, rectangular stones. Each one is a unique, irregular polygon, a multi-angled puzzle piece of immense weight and size, some standing over 28 feet tall and weighing more than 120 tons. Yet the true miracle is in the fit. Without a single drop of mortar to bind them, these gigantic blocks are locked together so perfectly that the seams are virtually invisible. For centuries, guides have demonstrated this by showing that you cannot even slide a razor blade or a single piece of paper between the stones. This is engineering that borders on the supernatural. How did the Inca, who lacked iron tools, the wheel, or even a written language as we know it, achieve this impossible perfection? The conventional theory suggests a process of immense, patient labor. Workers would have used harder stones to pound the blocks into shape, repeatedly test fitting one against another until the contact surfaces matched exactly. This would have created a phenomenon known as asymmetric elastic matching, where the immense pressure over time actually causes the stones to settle and conform to one another, creating that legendary seamless joint. It is a testament to almost unimaginable dedication. But another, more controversial idea persists, one passed down through Andean oral tradition. It is the legend of a lost plant whose sap possessed the miraculous ability to soften stone, allowing the Inca to mold the hard rock like clay before it solidified again. While no scientific evidence supports this, the theory speaks to the sheer wonder the walls inspire, a feat so advanced it feels like magic. The purpose of the site is as layered as its construction. Its formidable, zigzagging walls, which some say represent the teeth of a puma whose body was the city of Cusco below, certainly suggest a mighty fortress. Spanish chroniclers wrote of a terrible battle here where the Inca fought desperately from these very ramparts. Yet the precision and artistry also point to a sacred role, a ceremonial center dedicated to the sun and other celestial powers. It was likely both, a place where spiritual and military power were intertwined, a symbol of the Incas' divine right to rule and their profound connection to the living earth. The final piece of the puzzle is the quarry. The stone was mined from sites miles away, across deep ravines and steep mountainsides. Without wheels, the only way to move these 100-ton blocks was with sheer human force, using ropes, levers, and earthen ramps, a task requiring the coordinated effort of thousands. When you stand before these walls, tracing the impossible seams with your own eyes, the mystery only deepens. This was not just a fortress or a temple. It was a statement carved in stone, a declaration that the Inca understood the very bones of the world in a way we have since forgotten. Towering over all other medieval books, the Codex Gigas is a volume of such immense scale it feels less like a manuscript and more like a monument. Its very name means giant book, and for good reason. It stands nearly 3 feet tall, almost 2 feet wide, and is a foot thick. A behemoth of bound vellum and ink that requires the strength of 2 people to lift. But its physical weight is nothing compared to the heavy legend it carries. Within its pages, surrounded by sacred scripture, lies one of the most chilling and famous illustrations of the medieval world, a full-page portrait of the devil himself. This stark, haunting image shows a lone, monstrous figure crouching in an empty white field, with claws, horns, and a face of pure green malevolence, staring out from the parchment as if challenging the holy text that surround it. How did such a terrifying image find its home in a Bible? the legend offers a dramatic and desperate story. It claims the book was the work of a single monk, a scribe who had broken his monastic vows and was sentenced to be walled up alive. In a final, frantic plea, the doomed man promised his brothers he would create a work to glorify their monastery forever, a book containing all human knowledge. The task was impossible, so as midnight approached, he prayed not to God but to the fallen angel Lucifer, asking for his help. The devil completed the manuscript in a single night, and in gratitude, the monk added the sinister portrait of his benefactor. It is a fantastic tale, but the scientific truth is in many ways even more compelling. While analysis confirms the codex is the work of one incredibly consistent hand, the idea of a single night is pure fantasy. The sheer physical labor involved is staggering. The book is made from the skins of over 160 donkeys, requiring the preparation of a new animal every few days. The ink had to be meticulously mixed and the text copied letter by perfect letter. Based on the script's consistency, historians believe a single, devoted scribe likely labored on this monumental task for 20 to 30 years, working in isolation, perhaps as a self-imposed penance. So what fills the pages of this colossal book? It is a strange and fascinating library in itself. It contains the complete Latin Vulgate Bible, but also secular historical works by authors like Josephus, medical formulas for everything from common ailments to exorcisms, and calendars for tracking saints' days. This combination of the sacred, the historical, and the practical was not necessarily demonic, but it was unusual. The devil's portrait, while shocking, was not entirely out of place in a medieval context, often used as a moral lesson, a vivid depiction of the enemy to be feared and resisted. Scientific analysis of the manuscript reveals no supernatural fingerprints, only the painstaking work of a human mind. Through multispectral imaging, researchers can see the layers of ink and the structure of the parchment, tracing the scribe's steady, unwavering hand across decades. There are no signs of haste, no evidence of a second infernal writer. The only miracle here is one of profound human endurance. This book forces us to ask why we are so drawn to the dark legend. Is it because the reality of a man sacrificing his entire adult life to a single, silent task is too immense for us to easily comprehend? We prefer the story of a single, desperate pact with the devil over the quieter, more haunting truth of a lifetime spent alone in a candle-lit cell, pouring every ounce of faith and fear onto the page. The Codex Gigas is a testament not to demonic power, but to the terrifying, beautiful, and obsessive power of the human spirit. Scattered across the swampy lowlands of Mexico, the colossal heads of the Olmecs stare out from the jungle with stoic, silent power. These are not just sculptures, they are monuments of pure presence, each one carved from a single, gigantic block of basalt, a volcanic stone so hard it rings like metal when struck. The sheer scale is humbling, with the largest head standing over 9 feet tall and weighing as much as 20 tons, the weight of 2 full-grown African elephants. But the true mystery begins far from where they were found. The basalt came from the Tuxtla Mountains, a journey of over 50 miles through treacherous rivers, swamps, and dense rainforest. Imagine the coordinated effort, the generations of labor required to move these titanic stones without the wheel, without pack animals, using only rollers, ropes, and rafts. This was the work of Mesoamerica's mother culture, the Olmec, whose innovations laid the foundation for every civilization that followed, from the Maya to the Aztec. And the most enduring question is simple yet profound: who are these stone giants meant to be? Each head is an individual with unique facial features, expressions ranging from serene confidence to grim determination, and most strikingly, each wears a distinctive, tight-fitting helmet. Some helmets are plain, while others are intricately carved with symbols, perhaps denoting a specific rank or achievement. The dominant theory is that they are portraits of powerful Olmec rulers, deified kings immortalized in stone to project their authority for eternity. But another compelling idea connects them to the Mesoamerican ball game, a sacred sport with life or death stakes. Were these the helmets of revered ball players celebrated for their ritual prowess, or could they be early depictions of gods, the helmet representing a divine headdress? The variation in their features suggests a society with a complex understanding of portraiture and individual identity. The fleshy cheeks, broad noses, and thick lips are rendered with a stunning realism that feels instantly familiar, a human face from across 3,000 years. When you look at them, you are not looking at a generic symbol, you are looking at a person. This focus on individual rulers hints at a shift in power, the rise of a centralized authority that could command the labor and resources for such projects. The very existence of these heads speaks of a sophisticated society with extensive trade networks, skilled artisans, and a powerful ruling class that could compel such a monumental effort. Their legacy is carved into the DNA of Mesoamerican culture. The Olmec concept of the colossal head, the ball game, their iconic jaguar deity, and their early forms of writing and calendar systems were all inherited and refined by the civilizations that came after. The Maya and the Aztec did not spring from nothing, they built upon the foundation the Olmec laid. These silent sentinels, discovered in a handful of key sites like San Lorenzo and La Venta, are the physical proof of that foundational genius. They stand as a permanent question, a gallery of powerful individuals whose names and stories are lost to time, their stony gazes forever fixed on a world they helped create. Deep in the lush river deltas of Costa Rica, a different kind of stone mystery lies half buried in the earth. The stone spheres of the Diquis are an archaeological enigma of breathtaking geometry, hundreds of nearly perfect orbs scattered across the landscape. Ranging from the size of a small melon to colossal spheres over 2 meters in diameter and weighing more than 16 tons, their precision is what stuns the modern eye. They are so perfectly round that their curvature often deviates by less than a centimeter across their entire surface, a feat of engineering that seems to defy their ancient origins. These were the creations of a pre-Columbian people known as the Diquis culture, who flourished from around 800 AD until the Spanish conquest. Without metal tools, without the wheel, how did they achieve such spherical perfection? The process was one of immense patience and skill. Artisans selected large boulders of gabbro, a hard volcanic stone, and then began a relentless cycle of pecking and grinding. Using tools made of even harder stone, they would repeatedly strike the surface to fracture small pieces away, slowly shaping the raw block. Then, with sand and water as their abrasive, they would grind and polish the sphere for generations, smoothing it into its final, impossibly round form. This was not a quick task, it was a multi-generational project for a single sphere, a testament to a society that valued long-term goals and communal memory. But why would a culture invest so much time and labor into creating these objects? The theories are as varied as the spheres themselves. Some researchers believe they were astronomical markers, arranged in specific patterns to align with celestial events like the solstices or equinoxes, turning the landscape into a giant observatory. Others see them as powerful status symbols, with the size and number of spheres in a group denoting the wealth and influence of a chief or clan. The most poetic idea suggests they were physical representations of the cosmos, with the spheres acting as symbols of celestial bodies or even a three-dimensional map of the stars, connecting the earthly realm to the heavens above. Their original placements held the key, but that key was tragically lost. When the spheres were rediscovered in the 1930s during agricultural clearing, they captured the imagination of the world but also attracted greed. A pervasive myth spread that the spheres, like some ancient piggy banks, contained hidden treasure. In a devastating wave of vandalism, countless spheres were dynamited by treasure hunters, blown apart in the futile search for gold inside. Many more were looted, moved from their original context to adorn government buildings and the private gardens of the wealthy, severing forever their connection to the sacred landscapes for which they were made. This act of destruction erased the very data that could have solved the mystery. Today, through detailed diagrams and careful mapping of the spheres that remain in situ, archaeologists are piecing together clues. We can see their precision in cross-section, the near-flawless circle that speaks of a profound understanding of geometry. We can map their locations, searching for patterns in their alignments that might yet reveal their purpose. Modern preservation efforts are a race against time and erosion, protecting these fragile giants as national symbols and World Heritage treasures. They stand, or rather lie, as a silent monument to a lost worldview. What profound understanding of the universe did the Dickwes people encode in the perfect shape of a stone sphere? We shattered the stones looking for gold, but the real treasure was the meaning we destroyed. A monument of a very different kind rose from the soil of rural Georgia, not in antiquity but in our own recent past. The Georgia Guidestones were a stark, modern megalith, a cluster of polished granite slabs erected in 1980 with a purpose that was anything but clear. Often called America's Stonehenge, its design was both simple and imposing. 4 massive upright stones supported a heavy capstone, all precisely aligned to track the sun and stars, and a central pillar featured holes that framed celestial events. But the true mystery was not in its architecture, it was in the words carved into its surfaces. In 8 modern languages, from English and Spanish to Hindi and Swahili, and 4 ancient scripts like Babylonian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphics, the stones presented a set of 10 guides for a future age of reason. These messages were the source of intense global speculation and controversy. They called for a world population of 500 million people, a drastic reduction from our current billions, and spoke of guiding reproduction to improve fitness and diversity. Other guides advocated for unity, truth, and a balance between personal rights and social duties. Who would create such a monument, and for whom were these messages truly intended? The entire project was commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, claiming to represent a small group of loyal Americans. His true identity was never revealed, and the motives of this anonymous group were endlessly debated. Were they environmentalists presenting a harsh solution to planetary overpopulation? Were they utopian philosophers leaving a blueprint for a post-apocalyptic society? Or were they something more sinister, their words a coded manifesto for a new world order that many found deeply unsettling? The mystery only deepened in 2022 when an explosion badly damaged the structure, leading to its complete demolition for safety reasons. The act of destruction transformed the Guidestones from a controversial landmark into a modern archaeological puzzle. We now have only footage and photographs to remember them by, showing the cryptic inscriptions that once stood in that Georgia field. Their physical form is gone, but the questions they raised about the future, about authority, and about the messages we choose to carve in stone for generations yet unborn, those questions linger more potent than ever. A stone slab pulled from the roots of a Minnesota poplar tree in 1898 carried a message that threatened to shatter the history of the New World. The Kensington runestone is a flat rectangle of Greywacke sandstone covered in runic letters that tell a harrowing tale. The inscription, dated to the year 1362, describes a party of 30 Norse explorers. It speaks of 10 men being killed, of a journey of 14 days from their ships to this location, ending with a desperate plea to the Virgin Mary for deliverance. If genuine, this artifact would rewrite the history books, proving that Scandinavian explorers ventured deep into the heart of North America, a full 130 years before Columbus ever set sail. The debate over its authenticity has raged for over a century, a fierce battle between those who see a monumental discovery and those who cry foul. The arguments against it are powerful. Linguists point to oddities in the runic alphabet used, suggesting it contains a mix of styles from different periods and regions, a combination unlikely for a 14th century carver. The language itself has been called suspiciously modern, and skeptics ask why no other archaeological evidence, no campsites or tools, has ever been found to support such a significant expedition. The most damning theory is that it was a clever hoax created by a Swedish-American farmer named Olof Öhman, who discovered the stone on his own land, perhaps inspired by local legends and a desire to claim a piece of history for his people. Yet the stone has its staunch defenders. Geologists have examined the weathering of the inscription, arguing that the deep, aged carvings show signs of being centuries old, not something freshly cut. Some linguists have countered the hoax claims by finding parallels for the runic forms in obscure medieval manuscripts, suggesting the carver could have been a learned, well-traveled individual. The most compelling question remains, why would a simple farmer create such a complex and historically plausible forgery, one that would require a deep knowledge of runic evolution he was unlikely to possess? The mystery only deepens as we travel south to the wooded hills of Oklahoma. Here rests the Heavener runestone, a massive slab of stone carved with 8 runes. Unlike the narrative of Kensington, this inscription is simpler, often interpreted as a date or a personal name, a kind of ancient graffiti that reads Glomedal or Gloms Valley. The location is even more improbable, suggesting a Norse presence not just in the Midwest but deep in the American South. How could Vikings have possibly traveled so far inland? Proponents point to potential river routes, a long-distance trade network, or an epic journey down the Mississippi River system. They point to other, smaller runestones found in the region, like the one at Potau, as possible corroboration. The academic consensus, however, remains heavily skeptical. Most archaeologists and historians maintain that the Heavener stone, like Kensington, is a product of the 19th or early 20th century, a time when romantic notions of Viking explorers were popular and Scandinavian immigrants were settling across the American heartland. Clear images of the runic carvings reveal the stark, angular letters cut into the rock, their forms both familiar and alien. Maps show the staggering proposed routes, snaking from the Atlantic coast up rivers and across portages into the continent's vast interior. The implications are profound. If these stones are authentic, they are not merely curiosities. They are proof that the Norse exploration of North America was far more extensive and daring than we ever believed. It would mean that Viking longships did not just briefly touch the coast of Newfoundland, but that intrepid bands of explorers penetrated the very center of the continent, meeting and perhaps trading with indigenous peoples centuries before other Europeans. They would be silent, stubborn witnesses to a lost chapter of human courage and exploration, a chapter we are still not ready to accept. A different kind of energy seems to pulse from the walls of an Egyptian temple far from the Giza Plateau. Within the crypts of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of strange and captivating reliefs have sparked a debate that bridges ancient mythology and modern technology. One carving in particular shows a surreal scene. A giant, elongated object shaped like a lotus flower is held aloft by a priest. Inside this bulb-like vessel, a snake stretches its body out in a perfectly straight line, its head reaching the narrow end of the container. The entire assembly is supported by a jed pillar, a classic Egyptian symbol for stability, while a 2-armed figure seems to hold the snake wire. To many who see it, the resemblance to a modern light bulb is uncanny, with the snake acting as the filament, the lotus as the glass bulb, and the jed pillar as a high-voltage insulator. This is the heart of the so-called Dendera light bulb theory, a suggestion that the ancient Egyptians might have harnessed electricity to illuminate their dark tombs and temples. The mainstream explanation from Egyptologists, however, is firmly rooted in the world of myth and symbol. They interpret this not as technology but as a profound religious image. The scene depicts the creation myth of the world emerging from a primordial watery chaos, represented by the lotus flower. The snake is the god Harsomptus, a manifestation of the sun god, being born from the lotus and symbolizing the spark of life and cosmic energy. The jade pillar represents stability and the backbone of the god Osiris, grounding this divine power. In this view, the entire tableau is a spiritual diagram, not an electrical schematic. It is about the genesis of light and life, not the operation of a lamp. Yet the controversial theory persists, fueled by the carving's startling visual parallels. Proponents ask how the deep, pitch-black interiors of tombs and pyramids were so elaborately decorated without a permanent, smokeless light source. They point to the absence of soot stains in many chambers, which would be expected from torches or oil lamps. Could there have been a form of advanced knowledge, since lost, that allowed them to generate light? The theory's greatest weakness is the complete lack of physical evidence. No wires, no batteries, no generators have ever been found in any Egyptian archaeological dig. No contemporary texts describe such devices. The technological leap required seems to belong to a different epoch entirely. Side-by-side comparisons of the carving with early light bulbs are visually compelling, showing the snake filament and the bulb-like enclosure. But this interpretation requires ignoring the rich symbolic language that the Egyptians used in all their religious art. The enduring power of the dendrolite is not in its plausibility as a blueprint, but in what it reveals about our own perspective. We look at the past through the lens of our own technology, and in doing so, we sometimes see our own reflection in the sacred symbols of a civilization that understood the universe in a completely different way. The real mystery is not whether they had electricity, but why we are so determined to find our own world in theirs. A world map from 1513 should not show a continent undiscovered for another 300 years. Yet the Piri Reis map does exactly that. Drawn on gazelle skin by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer, this fragment of a larger world chart survives as one of history's most perplexing artifacts. Its depiction of the known world is remarkable enough, with coastlines of Western Africa and Eastern South America rendered with a clarity that was rare for the era. But it is the landmass at the bottom of the map that ignites the fiercest debate. Stretching below the tip of South America is a detailed coastline that bears a startling resemblance to the northern shore of Antarctica, a continent that would remain officially unknown to the Western world until 1820. The impossible detail does not end there. This version of Antarctica is shown not as a frozen wasteland buried under miles of ice, but as a land with rivers, mountains, and a clear, ice-free coastline. Modern seismic surveys have revealed that the actual bedrock of Antarctica, hidden beneath the ice for millions of years, matches the general shape of the land on the Piri Reis map. How could a 16th-century admiral have known what lay under 2 miles of solid ice? The admiral himself provided a clue. In notes on the map, Piri Reis wrote that he compiled his work from 20 different source charts, including several that he described as dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. He specifically cited what he called the maps of the Mongols, suggesting he was drawing on a library of ancient knowledge that has since been utterly lost to history. This leads to a radical theory that these source maps were themselves copies of far older charts, created by a seafaring civilization that explored the world during a warm period in Earth's history, a time when the coast of Antarctica was indeed free of ice. The last time that part of the world was ice-free was thousands, not hundreds, of years ago. Mainstream scholarship offers a different, more conservative interpretation. Many cartographers argue that the controversial landmass is not Antarctica at all, but a distorted, duplicated representation of the eastern coast of South America. They point to inaccuracies on the map, such as the Caribbean islands being drawn out of proportion, as evidence that the cartography, while advanced, was still prone to the errors and guesswork of the age. The debate is a clash of two worldviews, one that sees a miraculous preservation of ancient knowledge, and another that sees a skilled but imperfect synthesis of contemporary exploration. We can visualize this puzzle with stunning clarity. Animations overlay the Piri Rise map onto a modern satellite image of the globe. The western coast of Africa locks into place with eerie precision. The bulge of Brazil aligns almost perfectly, then the animation slides south and the disputed coastline hovers over the frigid Southern Ocean. Does it connect to the Queen Maud land of Antarctica, or does it simply trail off into a cartographer's fantasy? The lines on the gazelle skin do not give up their secret easily. They represent either the greatest cartographic era of the Renaissance or the most tantalizing evidence that our planet was mapped by a civilization whose name we no longer remember. Buried beneath a Scottish field for half a century, a 5,000-year-old secret was brought back into the light. The Kochno stone is a colossal slab of rock, 42 feet long, and its entire surface is a dense tapestry of swirling, intricate carvings. When archaeologists carefully removed the protective soil in 2015, they uncovered a breathtaking puzzle. More than 90 individual symbols are etched into the stone, a frantic yet deliberate composition of spirals that seem to spin, concentric circles that ripple outward, and curious indentations known as cup marks. Among these geometric forms are carvings of human footprints, a deeply personal and haunting touch left by a long-vanished people. This was not a simple marker, it was a sprawling canvas of prehistoric art, a message from the Neolithic or Bronze Age that we can no longer understand. What profound idea required such an immense and complex expression? The theories are as varied as the symbols themselves. Some researchers see the heavens in the stone. They propose the swirling patterns and cup marks are a sophisticated star chart, mapping constellations or celestial events critical to an ancient society's calendar and beliefs. The spirals could represent the cyclical nature of life and death, or even act as a symbolic portal, a doorway for shamans to communicate with the spirit world. Others argue for a more practical purpose, suggesting the stone was a powerful territorial marker, defining the lands of a specific tribe or clan with an undeniable statement of ownership and identity. Yet the sheer artistic complexity suggests something more than a simple boundary line. It feels like a site of profound ritual, a place where communities gathered for ceremonies, perhaps using the carved footprints in an initiation rite, literally following in the steps of their ancestors. Detailed photographs reveal the stunning density of the work, every inch of the sandstone surface alive with meaning. Three-dimensional scans allow us to trace the grooves and curves with digital precision, highlighting the incredible skill and patience required to pack these designs into the unyielding stone with nothing but primitive tools. This very precision, however, is why the stone now lies hidden once more. After its brief reappearance, the difficult decision was made to rebury it. The threats of modern vandalism, of names and dates scratched over the ancient symbols by careless visitors, and the slow, relentless damage from wind and rain were simply too great. To protect the mystery for future generations who may have better tools to interpret it, the Kochno stone was returned to the earth. It sleeps again under a blanket of soil, a silent, swirling lexicon of symbols waiting for the day we can finally read its story. Beneath the clear, blue waters off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, the seafloor descends into a labyrinth of stone that should not exist. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a colossal, tiered structure that plunges down over 80 feet, its sheer faces and sharp angles forming a stark, geometric silhouette against the ocean currents. From certain angles, it looks unmistakably like a man-made pyramid, a sprawling complex of sunken ruins. The features are startlingly precise. You can trace wide, flat terraces that look like paved plazas, connected by what appears to be a massive, straight staircase. There are sharp, 90-degree corners, cleanly defined walls, and even a curious, triangular depression that many interpret as a ceremonial pool. It feels like walking through the drowned ruins of a forgotten citadel, a place that was clearly designed by an intelligent mind. Geologists, however, offer a different, equally compelling story. They explain that the rock itself is sandstone, a sedimentary stone that naturally fractures along straight lines and flat plains. They point to the powerful tidal currents and frequent seismic activity in the region, forces that have been methodically eroding the bedrock for thousands of years. The seemingly perfect stairs, they could be the result of weaker layers of rock eroding at a faster rate, creating a series of uniform steps, the straight walls and sharp corners. These are textbook examples of natural jointing and shearing in the stone, a process that can produce remarkably artificial-looking shapes without any human intervention. In this view, the Yonaguni Monument is a masterpiece of natural architecture, a stunning geological accident that plays tricks on the human eye, which is predisposed to see patterns and intention everywhere. Yet, for researchers like marine geologist Masaaki Kimura, this purely natural explanation is not enough. After hundreds of dives, he argues that the monument's complexity defies random chance. He points to the sheer symmetry of the structure, the way the terraces and walls are organized into a coherent, layered layout. He has identified features that he believes are carved pillars, stone tools, and even what looks like a human face chiseled into the rock. For Kimura and his supporters, this is the legacy of a lost civilization, a sprawling temple complex that sank beneath the waves at the end of the last ice age, when rising sea levels consumed vast stretches of coastal land. This theory powerfully connects to the ancient myth of Mu, a Pacific civilization said to have vanished beneath the ocean, a story often called the Asian counterpart to Atlantis. Underwater footage reveals the site in all its confounding glory. The camera glides over the massive, flat surfaces, highlighting the unnaturally straight edges. It pans across the dramatic staircase, each step seemingly uniform in height. Then the view shifts and we see the raw, fractured sides of the formation, where the natural bedding planes of the sandstone are clearly visible. Graphical analyses flash on screen, placing a computer-generated grid over the monument. One diagram highlights the precise angular relationships between the walls, while another overlays the formation with a known natural sandstone outcrop, showing similar, though less organized, geometric fractures. The visual evidence presents a perfect paradox, a Rorschach test carved in stone at the bottom of the sea. Are we looking at the ruins of a forgotten world, or are we simply seeing what we desperately want to see, projecting our myths onto the magnificent handiwork of nature? The answer remains submerged not just in water, but in our own interpretation of the past. Long before the first stones of Stonehenge were raised, a different kind of circle tracked the heavens from the heart of Europe. The Goseck Circle in Germany is a stunningly sophisticated monument, a series of concentric rings comprising an earthen ditch and a towering wooden palisade, constructed by Neolithic farmers around 4900 BC. This makes it the world's oldest known solar observatory, a celestial clock built over 1,000 years before the Great Pyramids. Its design was both simple and brilliant. The circular enclosure was broken by 3 precise gates, one to the north and 2 to the south. These were not placed at random. The southern gates aligned perfectly with the rising and setting sun on the winter and summer solstices, the shortest and longest days of the year. On the winter solstice, a person standing at the center of the circle would witness the sun rise through the southeast gate and hours later set through the southwest gate, framing the entire journey of the sun on this critical day. This was not a passive observation, it was an active architectural engagement with the cosmos. Through detailed animations, we can see this ancient calendar come alive. We watch as the sun, a brilliant orb of light, crests the horizon and sends its first rays spearing directly through the narrow gate, illuminating the sacred center of the circle. For a society of early farmers, this knowledge was not abstract science, it was survival. Accurately predicting the solstice meant knowing when to plant and when to harvest, when the long, cold winter had reached its peak and the promise of spring was returning. The Goseck Circle proves that Europe's first farmers possessed a deep, intimate understanding of the solar cycle, building their entire sense of time and ritual around the dependable rhythm of the heavens. But this place was more than just an observatory. Excavations within the circle revealed a darker, more complex purpose. Archaeologists unearthed human and animal bones, some showing cut marks and arranged in ways that strongly suggest ritualistic activities, possibly even sacrifices. The skeleton of one man was found decapitated and placed near the eastern gate. This evidence paints a picture of a site where life, death, and the cosmos were inextricably linked. It was a place where the community gathered not only to mark the sun's rebirth, but to appeal to the forces of nature through powerful and perhaps terrifying ceremonies. The Goseck Circle was not alone. It is part of a network of over 200 similar circular enclosures known as Kreisgräbnanlagen scattered across Central Europe. These structures, all built within a narrow window of time, hint at a shared cultural and religious revolution that swept across the continent. With computer reconstructions, we can compare these sites, seeing the common architectural language of ditches, palisades, and astronomically aligned gates. They were the Neolithic equivalent of cathedral cities, drawing people from miles around for communal events that cemented social bonds and reinforced a unified worldview. This simple ring of wooden posts in a German field stands as a monumental pivot point in human history. It marks the moment we began to build our understanding of the universe directly into the landscape, creating a sacred space where the sun's path and human fate were forever intertwined. Scattered across the misty highlands of Laos lies a landscape dotted with silent, stone sentinels. The Plain of Jars is exactly that, a vast collection of sites where thousands of gigantic stone jars, some standing over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons, are strewn across the grassy valleys and wooded hills. They were painstakingly carved from solid rock, primarily sandstone and granite, their interiors hollowed out with a skill that suggests a sophisticated and purposeful culture. Many are cylindrical, while others are more angular, but all share a profound, enigmatic presence. Local legend offers a story of giants. It is said a powerful ancient race, the Kunchim, created these massive vessels to brew colossal amounts of rice beer, a celebratory feast to mark a great military victory. The tale is vivid and compelling, a human-scale explanation for a superhuman feat. Yet the quieter, more somber theory points to a different purpose entirely. For decades, archaeologists have carefully excavated the ground around the jars, uncovering fractured human bone fragments, delicate ceramics, and glass beads. These are not the remnants of a party, but of a cemetery. The evidence strongly suggests the jars were elaborate funeral urns, used by a lost Iron Age culture for a practice of excarnation, where bodies would be placed inside the vessels to decompose before the bones were gathered for a final burial. This funerary theory transforms the plain from a mythical banquet hall into a sacred, sprawling city of the dead. Unraveling this mystery, however, comes with a grave and modern danger. During the Vietnam War, this region of Laos became the most heavily bombed place on Earth. Millions of cluster bomblets were dropped, and an estimated 80 million of these submunitions failed to explode, littering the landscape with hidden, deadly threats. Every step an archaeologist or local farmer takes is a risk, and large sections of the plain remain inaccessible, cordoned off by teams of dedicated bomb disposal experts. This tragic legacy adds a layer of poignant urgency to the research. From an aerial view, the true scale of the mystery becomes breathtaking. The jars are not randomly placed, but arranged in clusters of a few dozen to several hundred, spread across hundreds of square miles. They stand in open fields, nestled under the shade of trees, a silent community whose language and rituals are completely lost to us. What powerful beliefs compelled this culture to carve such immense and permanent vessels for their dead? Each jar is a monument to a life, a family, and a tradition that whispers to us across 2,000 years, a story we can only half hear over the echoes of a more recent war. Deep within the Balkans, a discovery from a seemingly simple grave challenges the very cradle of civilization. The Tartaria tablets, 3 small, fired clay discs found in a Romanian burial, are incised with a series of enigmatic symbols. These are not random scratches. You see carefully carved swirls that spin like whirlpools, clean straight lines grouped in sequences, and stylized shapes that look unmistakably like a goat or a branch. Dated to around 5300 BC, these tiny artifacts are at the center of a firestorm in archaeology. If these symbols constitute a form of writing, they would be centuries older than the earliest known Sumerian cuneiform from Mesopotamia, the place long credited with the invention of writing. This would not just adjust the timeline, it would shatter it, forcing a complete rewrite of human intellectual history. The tablets are closely linked to the Vinča culture, a sophisticated Neolithic society that flourished across southeastern Europe. The same distinctive symbols found on the tablets appear on other Vinča artifacts, from spindle walls to figurines, spread across a vast territory. This widespread use suggests the symbols were meaningful and recognized, not just the doodles of a single artisan. But what kind of meaning did they hold? The academic debate is deeply divided. One camp sees this as a true proto-writing system. They argue the repetition and combination of symbols, their placement in structured fields, points to a coded language perhaps used for trade, to mark ownership, or to record ritual incantations. The swirl could represent a concept like water or time, the lines could be numbers, and the pictograph of an animal could signify a clan name. In this view, the Tartaria tablets are a fleeting glimpse of a lost script, a complex system of communication that bloomed in Europe long before similar systems in the Middle East. The opposing side dismisses this as romantic speculation. They contend the symbols are merely decorative, owners' marks akin to a cattle brand, or symbolic religious imagery with no grammatical structure. They point out that no lengthy texts have ever been found, only short sequences. Without a bilingual inscription or a much larger corpus of text, they argue, it is impossible to prove these symbols can convey the full range of human language. High-contrast images reveal the symbols in stark clarity, each groove and curve standing out against the dark clay. Side-by-side comparisons with early Sumerian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphs are fascinating. You can see a parallel creative impulse, a human drive to represent the world through abstract signs. Yet the Vinča symbols remain stubbornly unique, a closed system that refuses to give up its key. The implications are staggering. If this is writing, it means a complex, organized society in prehistoric Europe was developing this revolutionary technology independently. The story of civilization would no longer be a single river flowing from Mesopotamia, but multiple springs bubbling up across the ancient world. These 3 small tablets hold a weight far beyond their physical size, carrying a silent question about where and how humanity first learned to make its thoughts permanent. Stones may hold more than just the weight of centuries. A radical idea suggests they could also trap echoes of the past. This is the stone tape theory, a concept proposing that certain stones, especially those rich in quartz, can act like a natural recording device. The theory suggests that during moments of intense emotion or trauma, psychic energy imprints itself upon the crystalline structure of the stone, storing the event like a videotape. Then, under specific conditions, perhaps a similar emotional state or a particular atmospheric pressure, the stone might play this recording back, releasing ghostly sounds, apparitions, or the chilling replay of a long-forgotten moment. The roots of this idea reach back to the late 19th century, with early psychical researchers speculating about spiritual residue. But it truly captured the public imagination in the 1970s, popularized by a television play that directly explored the concept and gave the theory its memorable name. This framework quickly became a favorite tool for paranormal investigators. it offers a tantalizingly scientific-sounding explanation for phenomena reported in ancient stone structures. A phantom battle cry heard in a medieval castle's great hall could be a replay of a long-ago siege. The apparition of a sorrowful woman in a stone tower might be a residual echo of her grief, endlessly looping for centuries. The theory connects our fascination with ancient sites directly to the supernatural, suggesting that the very stones of a place are saturated with its history, not just symbolically but literally. To visualize this, imagine atmospheric reenactments, where actors portray a tragic historical event against a backdrop of ancient stone walls. The scene flickers, the sounds become distorted, and the image fades, demonstrating how a moment might be recorded and imperfectly played back. In interviews, paranormal investigators describe their experiences, noting how feelings of dread or sudden temperature drops often accompany these stone-based phenomena, which they interpret as the energy discharge of a stored memory. Yet, for all its narrative appeal, mainstream science has thoroughly debunked the stone tape theory. Physicists point out that there is no known mechanism for quartz or any other mineral to store complex information like sight and sound in this way. The concept of emotional energy lacks any scientific definition or means of measurement, and the theory fails to explain why only some traumatic events would be recorded while the mundane daily life of a place is not. So why does this idea remain so stubbornly compelling? It speaks to a deep human desire. We stand in a stone circle, a castle dungeon, or on an ancient battlefield, and we can feel the weight of the past. The stone tape theory gives a name to that feeling, a pseudo-scientific framework for the eerie sense that we are not alone, that the walls themselves are whispering their stories. It transforms a cold, inert stone into a vessel for memory, offering the haunting possibility that the past is not entirely gone, but merely waiting for the right moment to be heard again. Our final mystery stands not in a desert, but beneath the lush greenery of a Bosnian valley. The so-called Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun rises above the town of Visoko, a hill that researcher Semir Osmanagic claims is no hill at all. He proposes it is the largest and oldest pyramid on Earth, a colossal structure built by a lost civilization over 12,000 years ago. The evidence he presents is compelling at first glance. He points to the hill's striking geometrical shape, with 4 triangular sides that appear remarkably symmetrical. These sides, he argues, are precisely aligned with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west, just like the Great Pyramid of Giza. His team claims to have excavated and discovered massive, man-made blocks of a concrete-like material covering the structure. Beneath the surface, a labyrinth of underground tunnels known as Ravni tunnels stretches for miles, which he interprets as a sacred network built by the pyramid's creators. This narrative of a forgotten, advanced culture has captivated the global public, drawing thousands of tourists and volunteers eager to rewrite history. Yet the response from the global scientific community has been a unified and forceful rejection. Geologists from across Europe have conducted extensive surveys and concluded that the pyramid is entirely natural. The hill is a geological formation known as a flatiron, a common shape created by the natural erosion of sedimentary layers over millions of years. The symmetrical sides and alignment are a coincidence of this natural process. The concrete blocks are identified as natural conglomerate rock, a type of breccia commonly fractured into blocky shapes. Even the tunnels are explained as natural fissures and passages, common in such geological settings that may have been widened by human hands in medieval times but not constructed from scratch. Side-by-side comparisons reveal the stark difference. On one side, we see the familiar, clean lines of the Egyptian pyramids built with clear architectural intent. On the other, the Bosnian hill with its uneven, vegetated slopes that follow the natural contours of the land. Footage from inside the Ravni tunnels shows rough, unadorned passageways that look nothing like the polished, precise corridors of known ancient monuments. This site has become a powerful case study in pseudoarchaeology, a clash between a compelling story and rigorous scientific analysis. It ignites a deeper debate about who has the authority to interpret our past. Is it the academic institutions with their strict methods, or can an independent researcher with a bold vision challenge the established narrative? The Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, whether a miraculous discovery or a magnificent natural wonder, forces us to confront a difficult question. In our search for a lost golden age, are we uncovering a hidden truth, or are we simply projecting our deepest desires onto the silent, indifferent stones of the earth? And there you have it, 25 incredible stone-carved mysteries that stretch from the deserts of Peru to the highlands of Scotland. From the world's oldest computer to potential sunken cities and undeciphered scripts, these enigmas remind us that history is far from a closed book. They challenge our most basic assumptions about the past, forcing us to reconsider the timeline of human ingenuity. These silent stones spark our collective imagination, inviting us to wonder about the lives, beliefs, and sheer determination of the people who came before us. They stand as permanent proof that our ancestors were capable of astonishing feats, using nothing but stone tools and profound communal effort to create monuments that we, with all our modern technology, are still struggling to fully comprehend. So we turn the question over to you. Which of these mysteries captures your imagination the most? Is it the impossible weight of the Baalbek stones, the cosmic clockwork of the Antikythera Mechanism, or the silent, waiting script of Rongorongo? Do you believe we will one day find the keys to unlock all these secrets, or are some truths meant to remain just beyond our grasp, eternal reminders of the vastness of our own history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through time, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the forgotten corners and hidden secrets of the past. Thank you for watching.